Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we're going to look at the best decks for this upcoming weekend's historic best of one qualifier play-in. This month's really weird. We had a play-in and qualifier for limited in October, but this one's kind of the edge of tail end of October into beginning of November instead of it being in November. Really weird timing on this one here. So we're going to keep that in mind as we're kind of going through and seeing. So historic best of one is the play-in this weekend. Next weekend will be best of three play-in and the actual qualifier event. So we'll do a gameplay or a metagame for that as well leading up. So I'm going to focus on more of the established decks, things that you'll want to keep an eye on. The format in best of one is very linear. So largely it will be kind of creature aggro combo style, dedicated all-in combo, and then Eldrazi as kind of your main parameters of the format. Best of three does open it up more. You'll see like gen mid-range, stuff like that. A few things are a little bit more open. One thing to keep in mind, there's going to be some new cards coming to the format on the 25th as well. So this is the current format. Don't know exactly if we're going to see huge things like Snuff Out might see play, but generally I think some of those cards would be more best of three focused. They're pre-banning a lot of the free spells as it is right now that are coming to the arena client. So in terms of the format itself, Persist Combo is at about 9% of the meta, Boros Auras at 8%, Val Combo at 5%. Eldrazi's got a few flavors. We have Simic, we have Gruul, we have like Big Gruul, we have Gruul Aggro Eldrazi, Boros Energy, and then I'd say like Izzet Wizards. So we'll take a look. All these deck lists will be in the video description, so you can copy and paste them. If you want to use Untap to track your win rates, check out stats. The link for that is in the video description as well. While you're there, make sure to hit that sub button. We're less than 400 subs away from 20,000 on the channel, so greatly appreciate it if you can help out in that regard. It's free, easy, and goes a long way. So we're going to look at Diamond Mythic rank for the last week, 23,000 games. We'll see here Boros Auras has the highest win rate, but this is I'm going to call it a scuffed version. You shouldn't be playing Skrelv in the deck. Most of the decks do not play Skrelv. So I'm just going to kind of parallel with this deck here. This is the more stock version. Boros Auras is a very strong linear deck that I think is generally favorable against Eldrazi. I think this deck more than Energy is the deck I'm most fearful of, just because it can put on a very quick clock. They have protection for your limited removal, stuff like that. But Core Spirit Dancer and Light Pause are the two kind of engine cards. Both reward you for playing auras, either toolboxing cards with Light Pause or drawing you a bunch of cards and scaling a bunch of power. The big flex spot is if you're using Amped Raptor or if you're using Hushbringer. Hushbringer is really good in you're anticipating Val Combo, a lot of energy, Persist Combo because it shuts it down. Amped Raptor, it allows you to put out a bit more pressure early and good against the more interactive decks. The really fast starts of these decks include Demonic Ruckus plotted on 1, cast Light Paw on 2. When you cast the Ruckus, it lets you Sheltered by Ghosts and Tutor, so you get kind of built-in protection to start and lets you start putting on pressure. Otherwise, the deck's got just a bunch of ways to scale power and kind of haste out stuff with Aluris Companion. Naya Val Combo, this one's at 75%. There's a lot of ways to build this, but it's basically a 2-card combo with a trigger. You have a copy of Sara and a copy of Val out. Basically, if you gain a life, scry, investigate, surveil, any of those effects, it creates an infinite loop where you gain infinite life and drain your opponent infinitely. So you have Sara in here that gains a life, you put a counter on it, then you scry, which then triggers the Val, which gains your life, which then puts a counter, and so on and so on. With this version here, you have Green Sun that can find you combo pieces. Guide of Souls, Soul Warden both trigger the life gain. Birds of Paradise in here is ramp. Birthing Ritual helps you find pieces. Breakout lets you find pieces. Prosperous Innkeeper is another life gain. Then Dewdrop Cure and Court of Calling help you find pieces. This version here is softer to ETB hates, so things like Torpor Orb, Hushbringer, stuff like that. Whereas some will play other versions with like a Convoke style package that you can use the Warden of the Inner Skies to tap to surveil. Some will play Gilded Goose because you can make the food tokens that can gain you life and circumvent that way there. Mardu Energy, which is really Boros Energy with surgical extractions in. You'll see some decks running surgical just to combat the various graveyard hit decks. think this deck is a really good choice for the format. It's linear and fast enough to pressure the Eldrazi decks while still being able to be interactive. The core of the deck, you have your Johnny, which is one of the strongest cards in the format. This card seeing legacy play, obviously a staple in Modern. This card here, paired with Goblin Bombardment, lets you easily flip and start machine gunning down your opponent's board. This version here, Galvanic, Guide of Souls, Esper Sentinel's Tax, Stadium Headliner, and a copy of Voice of Victory, just ways to make more bodies that you can fling at your opponent. And then you'll see Surgical Extraction, just a really flexible card, deals with obviously Persist Combo, which we'll take a look at various kind of graveyard hate pieces. Against Eldrazi, the blue bounce effect, you can exile it from their graveyard. Raven Charm's another flexible card. It's either creature removal, destroying enchantments, or another way to exile the graveyards. So our first Eldrazi deck is Gruul Eldrazi. I would say this is the big Gruul. So this version here, you have a bunch of early ramp, Talisman, Golgari Signet. One of the best cards in the format, Kozilek's Command. This card just does everything. Creature removal, ramp, card draw, graveyard exile, just a really flexible card. This version's playing Kozilek's Return as a sweeper here. So 2 damage on the first side, and then if you cast an Eldrazi spell with 7 or more mana value, you get to exile and deal 5 damage to each creature. So it's another sweeper on the back end out of your graveyard to deal with the bigger stuff as well. This one's got a Karn package, which we'll look at a sec. The Sowing Mycospawn can help you find lands and blow up your opponent's lands. This version here, you have access to Eldrazi Temples. You have Grove of the Burn Willows as another way to add mana, both colored in that. Gemstone Caverns, another way to get ahead on mana. Ugin's Labyrinth, another way to have a dual land. And then you have tutorable things like Bajuka Bog in here. Blast Zone, Sanctum of Ugins, more card advantage. Phyrexian Scrapyard is a way to kind of churn through, gets you more lands, can be a mana sink to make you a Soul Phyrexia. But also as a way to discard the Emrakul World Anew and then Madness cast it for 6 mana instead. You got 3 Ugins on the top end. World Breaker is a way to blow up lands, along with the Sowing Mycospawn. Could also deal with artifacts and enchantments. Your Karn board, Cityscape Leveler, general blow up things, Torpor Orb for ETB hate, Liquid Metal Coating for graveyard. Liquid Metal Coating paired with Karn, you can basically shut off activated abilities or blow up their lands. Needle for activated ability, Grafdigger's Cage as a way to stop like Persist, Court of Calling, Collected Company, anything like that. Then Tormod's Crypt is graveyard hate, and then Chalice to lock out low stuff. I like playing Haywire Might in my version as well. Against Auras, it's a way to get rid of things like Sheltered by Ghosts. Incidental, just kind of having a way to deal with artifacts and enchantments. Now this one does have a World Breaker. I'm playing Simic Eldrazi, which doesn't normally have that. Simic Eldrazi, so this is close to the list I'm playing. Big thing here, there's no talismans in this one, which I really like the talismans. I think it does a good job of providing you some utility in terms of just early ramp. You have very strong draws where you can Ugin's Labyrinth on 1, Talisman on 2, so it gets you, Ugin's Labyrinth on 1 and Talisman, so you untap with 3 mana before you play your next land. You can have access up to 5 mana on turn 2, which is very strong. Sowing Mycospawn is another way to find lands. This version's on Thought-Knot Seer and the full set of Karns, so kind of heavier on the top end. I think 4 Karns probably a little too much. Full for Ugin here, 4 Null Drifters, 4 Devour Destinies. I'm on 2 Ugins, 2 Sire 7 Deaths, 3 Devour, 1 Emrakul, the Promised End. That's kind of my top end. I like having, situationally, they're kind of different cards. Ugin's not always guaranteed to be cast on curve because it doesn't get the cost reduction or the double mana from the Eldrazi Temple. Sire's 7 Deaths is really good in the mirror, and then it helps you kind of push and help you stabilize your life total. I find Ugin's better against Wizards. You would think that the Sire would be great against Wizards, but on more than one time they've kind of killed their creature that I blocked with, and then they kind of get you that way there. Your Karn board, God Pharaoh's Statues attacks, 1 ring for card advantage, Torpor Orb for ETB effects, and then the other cards like we've mentioned. Grafdigger's Cage is something I would probably play in the deck as well. I think Grafdigger's Cage is very strong at just locking out decks. Samwise Combo. So this is Samwise Gamgee, Cauldron Familiar, and a way to sack. Basically is an infinite loop of cat coming into play. It sacks when it comes into play. Samwise generates you a food token, and then you just create a loop and drain your opponent out. This has got a mix too where you have Amped Raptor, you have a Johnny, so another kind of fair plan. So Goblin Bombardment or Bartholomew are both ways you can sacrifice for value. You can do the Zealot from Edge of Eternities as kind of a card in here too, just to get around the legend rule. So you can kind of mix it in that regard there. Goblin Trap Finder, Lucky Witness help you dig 4 cards in the combo along with Amped Raptor. I'd say the biggest thing with this deck is the mana base is kind of precarious. You can lose to your own mana. Obviously, you lose to like Torpor Orb style effects is there as well. So some of these decks sometimes will play things like Haywire Might in the main as well. So Persist Combo. So this deck here can win on turn 2 typically. I would say one card that this deck is missing is Doomscar Giant or Titan. The red give all your creatures haste for the turn. I think playing one of those in the deck is very strong. How it works is basically get cards into your graveyard. Faithless Looting, Otherworldly Gaze, Tome Scour, Izzet Charm, draw, discard. Just loot through your deck, put into your graveyard key cards, notably Scholar of the Lost Troves and Emergent Ultimatum. Emergent Ultimatum can then get you a package of Verdant, Rejuvenation, Expropriate, Breach the Multiverse. If they give you Verdant, you basically get every creature out of your library. With the Doomscar Tyrant, you just haste them out. You can also just start chaining together spells. Conspiracy Unraveler lets you cast the spells. You bring them back with Persist or Life Death as a reanimation effect. So you just kind of free cast a whole bunch of big stuff. This deck obviously can lose to certain things like Surgical Extraction. It can still win, but it's limited in terms of Torpor Orb style effects or Hushbringer. You have to rely on the Conspiracy Unraveler half. So that's one thing to kind of keep in mind there. This one's a cool one. I don't know how consistent it is, but I like the general idea here. One thing that would probably make sense in here too is Quantum Riddler, but it is a kind of cheat into play big stuff. How it works is you have cards that manifest dread. So natural selections, you're not the starting player, costs 1 less, you manifest dread. Then it has rebound, so you get to cast it again for free, so you manifest dread. Growing Dread lets you manifest. Verdant Dread lets you manifest as well, and then just kind of keep manifesting. What you're trying to do with the deck is manifest one of these big effects. Emrakul the Aeon's Torn, Omniscience, one with the Multiverse, Atraxa, Lurker of the Deep, and then you have Essence Flux, Planar Inclusion, or Splash Portal, all those ways to bounce that manifest token comes into play on the other side, and then you just have it like, oops, I suddenly have an Emrakul on, turn 3. Type things, which is kind of sweet. You also have the way with Shifting Woodlands can become a copy of Omni, one with the Multiverse, so there's ways that it can also get that effect there, which is really strong. I'm really curious with this. I need 12 mythics for this deck, jeez. The old Noxious Revival and Mythic is killing. This one looks fun though. I really like this idea. So Jund Eldrazi, which is really Gruul Eldrazi. This is the more aggro version, the Echoes of Eternities. So this doubles up the colorless triggers and colorless spells. So really what you're trying to do here is get ahead on mana or like with Utopia Sprawl, kind of ramp out into Echoes of Eternity. You have Glaring Fleshraker here, which when you cast a colorless spell, you get a Scion, or a Spawn. I always say Scion. And then whenever a colorless creature enters, it pings. So this helps you ramp into more. Eldrazi Linebreaker pushes through a bunch of hasted damage, which is very strong. Faceless Agent helps you find more Eldrazi spells. And so it's more of a low to the ground, push through a whole bunch of damage with this version here. So Jund Aggro is really Gruul kind of sly prowess fling. Not heavily played, I would say, but a strong deck. This mana base, I'm including it because the idea I think can be reasonable in best of one. This mana base is terrible. So I'd strongly suggest improving the mana base just from a consistency standpoint. I wouldn't play the Calisel Swords. It'd be like Stomping Grounds, Copperline Gorge, Forest, 1 or 2 Den of the Bugbear, maybe one of the red Pain Lands that draw. Something like that. You can play Mana Confluence, you can play Verge, or like Starting Town type effect, but these cards aren't good in that regard, like these Pathways, stuff like that. Game Trail is not something you want. But the core of the deck is you have Slick Shots, Scamps, Swift Spears, Simic Might, and then you have cards like Groundswell that can do extra power, Massive Might, a power boost and Trample, Monstrous Rage, Scale Up does a huge power boost, Snakeskin Veil for protection, Swift Spears, Teaching gives haste and prowess. So make a big creature and then either just smash your opponent to death or fling them at your opponent with Callous Sellsword. Mono blue Affinity. So this deck here, another deck that can be built a number of different ways. You can have Izzet, you can have mono blue, you can have pretty much whatever you're looking in that regard. This one here is playing a little bit more in the Affinity. You have Frogmite, Kappa Cannoneer, Thought Monitor. I will say I'm going to post an Izzet version because I think that one's better than this one here. There's an overlap in terms of the cards, but you should be playing full Thought Monitor, full Kappa Cannoneer. You should be playing the Warp card that makes you a bunch of tokens. Mox Amber is really strong with Tamiyo and Emery. You can kind of get those early mana accelerants. This one's on Nettle Cyst. Most of the decks don't play Nettle Cyst. Instead, just trying to do a quick Kappa Cannoneer. One thing we have in this format is Seed of the Synod, an artifact line that adds you some value. But I'll find another list to post in place of this. I think the Affinity archetype is fine. It's a okay choice. I'd probably say not tier 1, but definitely can win some games. You don't have Urza Saga, which is the card that adds some consistency. You should also be playing for Drix Interlacer. This card just draws you a bunch of cards in alchemy terms. Basically, an artifact comes into play, you put it gets intensity counters, you can sacrifice to draw cards, and then you just bring it back with Emery and kind of loop it in that regard there. So I'll paste another Affinity deck list. And then lastly, Izzet Wizards, another deck that can be built a few different ways. I do think, kind of stating offhand, this mana base is really bad. Like, okay, I gotta fix these mana bases. Showing that you can still win, but this mana base obviously you should be playing Virgin or full Steam Vets, full Spire Bluff Canal, a couple River Glide Pathways. There's the Pain line that you can draw, Fiery Islet. So those cards are all there, but I think the concepts here, bunch of prowessy wizard stuff, Illuminating Lashes Burn that draws you cards. You have Dreadhorde Arcanist that can flash stuff back. The real kind of speedy combo is Swift Spear's Teaching to give haste and prowess. You cast out Dreadhorde Arcanist that attacks right away, flashes back the teachings, so you kind of scale and get more there. Some of these decks will play Flame of Anora in the main. Again, Surgical Extraction is probably something I would play, so I'll post a revised version of this one as well, I think. So that's it. Good luck to those playing. I will probably do at least a run with Simic Eldrazi. Might try a more aggressive version because I've been getting some bad mulligans and it's been kind of 50-50 for me lately, but started really strong. In best of 3, I'd probably play Simic Eldrazi. So that's it for the week. Good luck to those playing. We'll catch you next time.